Alright, so in this tutorial I'm going to go over the different features of the brand new layout editor that we're including with version 4.3 of our framework. So you've probably seen a little bit of this in our introduction video, and if you've skipped ahead and gone on to working with the different pages, such as the contact or about us or whichever page, you're going to see some different tips and tricks, and I'm going to go over some of them here as well. But I'm also going to go into a little bit more detail about all the different features that we currently have so far as of the time of this video for the layout editor. So the layout editor is a mechanism where we can create dynamic layouts. And so what a dynamic layout is, rather than hard-coded HTML as we would have had in previous versions of our framework, where we would actually have files that are included with the package called template dash homepage or template dash team members or something like that you could apply to your pages using when you go to the page, and then on the right hand side there's a little drop down list where you can select templates. We've moved away from that, and we're now giving more power to you to go and configure those layouts using like a visual editor of sorts. And so you don't have to know any HTML. We've gone and configured the items in the configuration files for the theme, provided your theme currently supports this new editor. At the time of this video, hopefully when you're watching this, your theme is also now supported. But so it gives you a lot of flexibility. You can create, copy, just do a whole bunch of different things with these layouts. So one of the things I want to show you here, because I've gone and done a bunch of videos already, there are I've gone and changed things from the standard, what we want to do, how I started this. So I'm just trying to think of a good one that I might have gone and messed with. But what I will show you here is that we've got the minimize to left. I'm going to edit this. So, and what we're going to see here, and I'm just trying to think if there's any additional padding. Yes, I would have. This is something that I added in a video after the fact. Now, if you were to go up to the help menu, you're going to find here that there is this special operations, and there's this link. Revert this layout to the original default version included with this theme. This cannot be undone. You click this, boom, it is reset back to the original factory default for this theme. It's great. It's powerful, and if you've really gone and messed up your layout, and it's certainly possible, there's a lot of things you can do, and deviate from the norm. Things might not display as you would anticipate. But in this case, I'm going to revert this one, and it's done. So we're going to find that this is the original version, and it doesn't have the divider down at the bottom. So just like that, I've reverted this layout because this is one of the ones that was included. I've reverted it back to the original. Okay, just like that. There's even a more powerful version of this where we can install and revert all default layouts. And we can delete all layouts, and if you want to just start from scratch and say, you know what, this is what I want to do, you could do that. Warning, it can't be undone. So you can't delete and then restore. That's just, delete is a delete. But I can install, revert default layouts, and boom, you notice that a couple layouts are now missing. I've now reverted back to the boilerplate, or how we normally have this set up. Okay. So those are some very interesting functionalities that I didn't cover in any other video yet. There's a copy function here. So say you had this contact page, and maybe for whatever reason you wanted to have 3 separate contact pages, each with a different, like a department, like a different map up at the top. And although you could all use the same contact page, maybe you wanted to have an HTML box in a different region on this page as well. And maybe you wanted to, I don't know. I mean, there's a number of different ways of thinking about, maybe there's a situation that maybe we would want to copy. Well, we've given you a copy button. So watch this. I hit copy. Boom. There we go. There's the copy right there. You can see this. It says copy. 0 pages assigned to it. And so we can go and edit that, and we can give it a different name. Test. And maybe we would maybe just change the I don't know, maybe we give it a different footer or something like that. I'm not going to make any changes for that, but I will show you. You can just hit save and cancel out of this, and you'll see that of course it's called contact test. All right, and of course you can delete. Are you sure you want to do this? Yes, and it's now deleted. So those are a couple operations. You see how they work here. It's pretty self-explanatory. There's another button here called Set as Default. So what the default layout is if you've migrated to this framework from an earlier version of our framework, or if you have maybe you want to change what the default layout is for a bunch of pages. Generally speaking, once you've gone and assigned a page to a layout, it's set to that layout, and the only time that it would perhaps be applied to a different default layout is if you were to say delete this layout that is currently set to default. So what I mean by that is, watch this. I hit edit, and I'm going to call this minimize original. Okay. You see that there's a bunch of pages already assigned to it, and whereas like the contact us is assigned to a contact, this is maybe assigned to one with a menu. This is a pretty good example. We've got 4 pages assigned to it. So let's hit cancel, get out of here. So then we're going to make a copy of this. It's probably going to say minimize original copy. Yeah. Okay, so let's edit this. And we're going to get rid of this original here. We're going to call this copy. All right. And so the pages that are assigned to it, there are no pages that are assigned to it. Okay. We're going to hit save changes, and we're going to get out of here. And so for in this example here, why would we have a different one? Maybe we wouldn't maybe call it minimize. We'd call it like whatever you want to call it. It's always good to use really descriptive names that make sense. But so for example, you might want to use this for no, that's the original there. You might want to use the original for pages A, B, and C, and then this one for pages D, E, and F. But where the default mechanism really comes into play is if you have the 404 page. So it's going to use the default layout. Other pages that might use third-party plugins that render perhaps like a calendar that would have used the default layout of the WordPress system. Again, you can use this is the default mechanism. So it's basically what the layout that's going to be displayed if there's no such thing as a page template that can be applied to whatever it is. So you can't apply a page template to a 404 page because that's an internal working in WordPress. And as well as third-party plugins that would use the default WordPress layout, call it that, as the way to render your content. So that's where you'd use default, and that's really quite handy. In addition, if any pages are not yet assigned a layout, say you create a brand new page, it will use the minimize layout by default, or whichever, I should say, whichever page is assigned as default. What else should I show you here? Well, how about the inner workings of the what you can change here. So usually when you have a layout, it's divided into sections. So for in this case, we've got the main menu, we've got the main, and we have a footer region. And some layouts that come pre-configured with your theme may or may not have more of these or less of these, but they're organized into logical regions. So main menu is pretty obvious. It's going to be where you're going to have your main menu, and it's going to contain, in this case, this is called a preset region. The difference between, you've got a preset region here, you have a down at the bottom, you're going to see that there's this little icon. This is a sidebar region, so you can apply a sidebar to this particular row, and so we'll call these rows because they are defined, vertically. And so depending upon whether it's a footer, or sorry, it's a sidebar, or it's a preset, or it's a divider, or if it's a widget, and so these are the different types of rows that you can add. Different things are going to become available. So for the traditional row, which is what we've had available in previous versions of our themes, we have sidebars. Okay, so this is sort of like the original version of the row, and you can choose which sidebar is displayed in here. So in the footer, I've got a footer sidebar, and it contains one widget called an HTML box widget. You can expand the widget to give you more information, and basically this says to edit the configurations for this widget, please go to the Appearance and Widgets panel here. So for widgets that are part of a sidebar, you can't go and configure the features of the widget. For widgets that are part of a preset, and what a preset is basically, it's a sort of a preset little set of components that say I'm going to have widget A and B beside each other, or stacked on top of one another. And in this case, we have here page header title widget, and we could actually configure parts of this widget to how we want it displayed. So by default, the alignment is left and the box style is default. And to modify the page header title, go to the page associated with this layout and select Page Header Title tab. So it's giving you some information here, and so you can go and explore these things. If there's something that's configurable, you'll find it by clicking in this area here. All right, and then we have a different type of row called a divider, and depending upon the theme, there might be different styles of dividers that are available. And by default now we're going to have gap spacers also available, so that where you're adding some padding of some sort between different rows. So in this case I've got a gap spacer extra small, and so that's usually just about 10 pixels high or so. And you can try out which size you want to use here. And if you don't want any and you just want to temporarily say, hey, I don't want anything, you can select none. That said, you can also turn off a row. So this is basically just saying it's not enabled. And if you wanted to go so far as to delete the row altogether, you hover over top of the row once it's disabled, and you can click delete, and it's gone. And what happens if oh my goodness, I deleted, I didn't mean to. Just click up in the address bar and hit reload. Nothing's going to save until you hit Save Changes, okay? So a couple other things to show you here. So before we used to say, hey, you had to specify how many columns you want to use. Now we're saying, probably the default mechanism is auto, and unless you want to explicitly state how many columns you want to use. Where columns come into play specifically are when you have a preset region, but not even a preset region, but specifically a sidebar region where you use what are called column breaks. And if you don't know what a column break is yet, and you haven't played with those, they are basically a widget that you place between different widgets to indicate that you want to split into two different columns, just as you're seeing here, okay? And so because this is a sidebar, you can specify how many columns, but really only logically makes sense to have, like this doesn't make sense to have that displayed quite like that, does it? You want to have it full column. So you can either do one or auto. And generally by default we're just setting that to auto. In addition, we can set whether or not we want it contained, which is basically using the Bootstrap framework. We don't want to have a width of any more than about 1170 pixels. So that's what that's there for. Now, depending upon the region, there may be the ability to style the background. And so in this case, we're seeing here background style. So we can have different styles applied. And so you can either just, hey, give me some additional padding, or maybe use the styled. In this particular theme, there's a number of different styles here. And then you're going to see here down at the bottom something else, and this is where we use what are called active backgrounds. And so active backgrounds are essentially where you can choose to create your own styled image background. So these are ones that come boilerplate with the theme. And this one is we've called it an example map background, and it can actually use Google Maps to go and place a map in the background, and you can style that map however you like, and that's covered in under active backgrounds here. And you can go and create as many as you like, and you can use images. I believe we also have it set up for video, and Maps, Google Maps. So you can choose to make those. So that's how you style the background behind the text and the content if you like. And again, of course, we're also seeing contained here. And when you see icons such as this, that means it's draggable. You can rearrange it. Okay, well, sometimes you have to, grab one and move it above the other. Sometimes in this situation, it's not going to really let me move it above there. So you have to sometimes fiddle around with it a little bit. But that's how you go and rearrange things here. Okay, if you don't see it, it means that it is designed to be stuck there to the top. It's not designed to move it around. But that said, you could go and hide it and add your own preset sidebar or widget to that region if you wanted to. Okay. What else to show you? So for example, here we've got a preset region here, and we know it's a preset region because we can't configure which sidebar it's set to. But you can go and configure some of the features. So with a typical logo widget, we would contain it within a sidebar and apply that sidebar to a row. And those configurations are done via the Appearance and then Widgets panel. That's how we've done it traditionally. Now that we're allowing you to have sort of preset regions, preset rows in your layout that you can configure dynamically, we are now providing those same features that you would normally get via the Appearance and then Widget panel directly in the layout editor. So you can choose what you want to be displayed here. So for example, it's going to use the graphic logo is going to be disabled. The vector icon is going to be disabled. The website name is going to be set as whatever the default is for the site. Same with the tagline. It's going to be aligned to the left, and it's going to be linked to the site default. So in previous versions of our framework, this is actually a new feature where you can specify where the logo or the website name is going to be linked to. Where this is handy is the site default is basically the blog root, okay, the root of the blog, and usually that's the root of the website. But sometimes people have the WordPress installation installed into a subfolder and they just run just a blog off of it, but they still want the website name to link to, say, not the blog root, but to the actual root of the domain. And that's where you can go and define that. And you could define it either here using the site default. You can either have the link completely disabled, or you can select a custom URL. And the rest of these are pretty self-explanatory. If you haven't used the logo widget before, I recommend you going and watching the video specifically on the logo widget. And again, none of these settings save until you actually hit the save button here. And again, you can use the default settings that are included with the theme and the layout by default, or you can go and override them. As far as adding additional items, at the top there's going to be of each section what you could theoretically add to a section. It's not always going to look good if you go and add a widget to the top bar. It's going to expand that top bar and it might not look very good. Most themes are designed in a particular way so that you don't really go and add more than what is really given you in the default view to certain regions. And that's just a limitation, but we're keeping it open so that you could theoretically go and say disable this row and then add something else if you wanted to. Okay. In addition, here I'll just give you an idea here with presets. So a preset is something that we've configured ahead of time for you for this particular theme that you can go and add to a region. So I'm not going to go and add any because I don't feel I need to reconfigure this theme or this particular layout. But it just gives you an idea. You've got a title here and a description as to what it's for. If you wanted to start exploring, by all means go and do it. This is how you go and have this particular region here. That's what makes a one-column content region. This is a two-column where you have content on the left and a sidebar defined on the right. This is the alternate, where sidebar is on the left and content is in the right hand side of the page. And this is how you get a three-column layout. Usually going more than 3 columns is not necessarily a really, it's hard to sometimes read. And if you want to go to something that is, say, a 4-column layout, then what we would recommend is going to having this preset in the page, so you're only looking at um, a single content. Sorry, single. I'm going to take that back. Instead, what you should do is insert a sidebar, and then you choose the sidebar that has 4 widgets with column breaks in between each one. And I can show you just briefly how to do that. So in this situation here, I'm going to go and add a new sidebar, and we're going to say 4 column. Maybe move. So we're going to go to widgets. So we have this new sidebar here, and just to do that, we're going to put, I don't know what we're going to put here, but usually you're not going to have content displayed in 4 columns, but you might have 4 HTML boxes that each would have some sort of information. Column 1, some text, save. And then you do that again. I'm just going to minimize this just to show you how the setup would work here. So that, in some situations that would look like those would be 4 boxes that would go side by side. Not when you're using a sidebar. Instead, what you need to do is you need to indicate the break between columns by adding a column break widget. So that means we have 1 column, 2 column, 3 column, and then that's the last column there. So that's now done and that's saved. Let's go back to our layout editor. Which one were we working on? The original, I think it was. And so what we would do here, instead of having, say, minimize page, we could probably just go and add a sidebar here. Keep in mind this is going to be on all pages. We have 4 columns. See, there you go. You've got 4 columns. And now you can rearrange these by dragging them left and right as far as the size. Again, it's going to tell you if you want to go and edit this, go to that one layout or the appearance widget control panel, and of course we can style things if we wanted to. But I mean, let's go and take a look at how this works. Now, keep in mind I didn't put any content in either of these 3 boxes. We're probably only going to see it in the one, but we can probably just real quick go and add just some dummy content here. Test 2, test, save. Test 3, test. Test 4, test. And then what we should probably do is go and find ourselves a page. Alright, so I found ourselves the sitemap, and it just turns out that in this particular background style, it doesn't look very good with that particular style. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to go back to that layout editor and go and throw ourselves maybe something different as a background style. I mean, we can just simply turn it off. I think styled image 1 might look nice. Save changes. Reload. There we go. So we got column 1, test 2, and test 4. But again, depending upon the image that you're using in the background there, it might not look so good. So maybe we'll just turn that right off. So we'll just go with the default. Here we go. So we're seeing column 1, test 2, test 3, test 4, just like we had typed in there, and that's 4 columns there. So that's how you go and do a 4-column layout. Usually with 3 columns, you're usually using a sidebar on the left, content, maybe another sidebar on the right. Okay, but you can go and stack widgets as well on top of these, just so long as you have a column break in between them. And I mean, what else we've got? We've got yeah, like I said, we've clicked the sidebar and we've inserted a sidebar region. You can also go in and label these regions. Call it my 4 columns here. Again, you can rearrange them however you like, and change the style. There is a widget button here where you can insert an individual widget. Now we have 2 types of widgets really that we've created. We've got simple widgets, which require very little configuration, and then some more complex widgets. Now the complex widgets are just available via the appearance and then widget control panel, and just because of their complexity and how things are edited, we haven't yet gone and included them in the available widgets that are available here. But we have a number of simple widgets here that you could just go and insert up at the top that don't need to go into a sidebar, such as the breadcrumb or a contact form or contact panel group, content region, obviously, custom menu, and focal box, logo, page header, titles, portfolio, search form, and slider region. That's current. That's what we currently have here. So you could go and just drop these into a single column. So they're only going to show up as a single column. They're going to take up the width of the contained area. So for example, let's just go and put a breadcrumb trail. Here's a single widget. Let's go and just take a look here. We're going to just leave it like that. Do we want to change anything else about it? Nope. There isn't really anything you can style here except maybe the box style that surrounds the text, but let's just hit save. And we're going to see that when we reload this, the breadcrumb trail shows up right there. So that's the purpose of having that. So you don't actually have to have a million and one sidebar widget containers with a single widget in each one. You can actually apply it to the layout directly. And then the very final thing is, of course, the divider. I think I covered that, but you can add a divider between as many rows as you like here, and again, the purpose of that is to add space or maybe some other styles here. Okay, and again, if you don't want something, you just deactivate it and then hit delete, and of course the save button is up there. Now you can't go and drag the sections around. They are designed to be where they are. And that's pretty much it. So that's the current features of the system. There's one more level to it, and that is, this is the layout. This is the master layout that you can, again, of course, apply different pages to. Yeah, so you can actually go and say, hey, I want to apply this layout to the About Us and blog page, and then hit save, and it's instant across your pages. So if you have many pages and you realize, what, I want all those pages, instead of using the minimize single column layout, I want to use the minimize with the sidebar on the right hand side, you could just apply to all your pages just like that. It's really quite powerful. But there's one other feature I want to show you here. So this is the sitemap page. We were just using that as an example. Let's go to all pages and sitemap. So it is currently using the minimized original, and it's using the sitemap sort of page type, where we go and display the sitemap content there. But I'm going to show you something where you can actually override on a page-by-page basis some of the features. So we're going to go to the Layout Manager. Sorry, I should probably call it something different. This is looking at the layout and from that is applied to this page, and there are ways that you can override certain features. So for example, we're going to be using the default, whatever is defined within the layout setting, default. But you know what, maybe what I want to do here is use a different tagline for this particular page. Oh, sorry, that's not the tagline. That's actually the website name. Well, that's fine. What we're going to use here is we're going to say cool web. Hit update. So this is going to be just for this page. This is not for the entire layout, but it's using as the layout as sort of a the template. But we're saying, what, we might want to just change one or two things so that when we go and load up the sitemap, the Onyx HD is going to be cool web. Okay, so this overall structure for the page is still the same for every other page, but this one page has one override, which is this little website name here. And there are some overrides that you can do. Not all things can be overridden, and there are reasons for that, but you can override some of these things. Page header title, you can change some of the default refers to the default for the layout. But you could say, hey, I want to have this aligned right, and you can override that, and so this sitemap is going to be pushed off to the right. It's not going to look as good. Oh, maybe I hadn't. Oh, apparently that's not a good example. Let's give it a go and see if we can't hit center here. Okay, there it is. So I just needed to refresh there, and there's the sitemap. And again, we'll just show you that it works off to the right-hand side again. Center right. Boom, there it is. So it's not going to work very well in all situations, but you can override on a page-by-page basis some of these logo settings, or not logo settings, widget settings over here. Um, yeah. So, anyways, that's more or less the extent of all the features of the layout editor currently, and probably in your theme you will probably still see the template, the ability to change the template over here. It's not going to be available in the newer themes, but because if you're migrating from an existing um, theme framework, an earlier version, you're probably still going to see these listed here, but it's not going to matter what you select here. It's basically all going to use the new dynamic layout editor, provided you have the layout editor enabled. And let's just go here. This is probably something I covered in an earlier video, but the layout manager will be listed as on if you are upgrading. If you are installing for the first time, you're not going to have a choice. You're going to be using the new layout editor, and so this option won't even be visible. It will just be enabled by default. Anyways, I hope you find that helpful and enjoy the new layout editor. I think you'll find it quite handy to use.